Well, hello there, lore lovers, and welcome back to Legends and Lore. I'm your host, David Culpepper, coming to you on this crisp evening of February 20th, 2025. Can you believe we're already this deep into the year? Time flies when you're chasing the strange and unexplained, doesn't it? I'm sitting here in my little recording nook, wrapped in my favorite sweater, the one with the elbow holes, because apparently I'm too stubborn to buy a new one. And I've got a mug of tea steaming beside me. Chamomile with a dab of honey, in case you're curious. I overdid it on the coffee earlier today, and let me tell you, I was buzzing around like a bee on a sugar high. Anyone else out there a caffeine fiend? I'd love to know your go-to brew. Hit me up on X at David Culpepper. So, how's your week been? Mine's been a mix of cozy and chaotic, snow flurries swirling outside my window, the kind that dance in the street lights like little ghosts, and I've been cooped up all day, hunched over my notes, with my two German shepherds, May and Huck, keeping me company. They're sprawled out here now. May's got her head on my foot like she's claiming me, and Huck's snoring so loud I'm tempted to record it for sound effects. Anyone else got furry pals tagging along tonight? I'd love to hear about them. Drop me a line on X. Those two have been my shadows all week, probably wondering why I keep muttering about mountains and mysteries. And speaking of mysteries, we've got a doozy lined up tonight, one that's been rattling around in my brain for years. It's the kind of tale that grabs you by the collar and doesn't let go, and I'm so excited to share it with you. Wherever you are, curled up by a fire, driving home through the dusk, maybe sipping your own tea, settle in, because we're about to take a trip somewhere cold, wild, and seriously spooky. Now, before we dive in, let's talk about why this mystery we're tackling tonight endures. Why it's one of those stories that just won't fade away, no matter how many decades roll by. We're stepping into the Dyatlov Pass Incident, folks, a name that's become shorthand for what the heck happened here. Picture it like a campfire tale that's been told and retold, growing bigger and weirder with every whisper. It's 1959, Soviet Russia, a frozen stretch of the Ural Mountains, and 9 young hikers, bright, adventurous souls, head out into the wilderness. Days later, they're found dead under circumstances so strange, so downright chilling, that 66 years later, we're still scratching our heads, writing books, making movies, arguing on X about it. This isn't just some dusty old case file. It's a living, breathing enigma. It endures because it's got everything: tragedy, terror, and that itch we all feel when we're handed a puzzle with half the pieces missing. It's the kind of story that keeps you up at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering, did that really happen? And if so, how? Let me tease you with the key themes we're going to unravel tonight, because oh man, this one's got layers. First off, we've got a brutal environment. The Ural Mountains in winter aren't messing around. We're talking temperatures plunging to minus 30 Fahrenheit, winds that howl like they're auditioning for a horror movie, snowdrifts so deep you could lose a house in them. It's a place that'll chew you up and spit you out if you're not ready. And trust me, these hikers were ready. That's the second piece. An experienced team. These weren't amateurs bumbling around with a map upside down. They were students from the Ural Polytechnical Institute, smart, tough, certified in skiing and survival, chasing a grade 3 hiking badge, the highest honor in Soviet outdoor sports back then. Led by Igor Dyatlov, a 23-year-old who could probably build a radio out of twigs and willpower. This crew knew their stuff. Which makes the third part, the tragedy with no clear answers, all the more baffling. 9 seasoned adventurers don't just vanish into the snow without a trace. Or do they? And then there are the details. The chilling, goosebump-raising details that turn this from a sad accident into something you can't shake. Imagine this. A tent slashed open from the inside, abandoned in the dead of night, boots and coats left behind like they couldn't get out fast enough. Bodies scattered across the mountainside, some frozen in their underwear, hands burned raw from clawing at a fire that wouldn't save them. Others found months later, buried in snow with injuries that don't add up, crushed skulls, broken ribs, no bruises on the outside. And then, brace yourself, missing eyes and tongues, just gone. Traces of radiation on their clothes, faint, but there like a whisper of something unnatural. These aren't campfire exaggerations. These are straight from the Soviet reports, the photos, the witnesses who trudged through that snow to find them. It's the kind of stuff that makes you lean forward and say, wait, what? So, what are we going to explore tonight? Oh, we're going all in, lore lovers. We'll start with the hard science. Because believe it or not, there are folks out there with calculators and graphs trying to crack this thing. Avalanches, sound waves, the kind of explanations you can pin on a chalkboard and nod at. But then we'll swing to the other side, and the wildest theories that'll have you raising an eyebrow or two. Military cover-ups in the Cold War shadows, secret tests gone wrong, maybe a little radiation sprinkled in for good measure. Or how about a yeti? Yep, I said it. Some hulking creature from Mansi folklore stomping through the snow. UFOs, time slips, a fight gone wrong among friends. We're not shying away from any of it. This is legends and lore, after all, where the facts meet the fantastic and we get to sift through it all together. Why does this mystery endure? I think it's because it's us. It's human. 9 people, full of life, laughing around a stove one night, and then gone, leaving behind a story that's equal parts heartbreaking and head-scratching. It's been 66 years and we're still here, still talking about it because we want to know, we need to know what happened on that mountain. Was it nature turning cruel? Something man-made and hushed up? Or something we can't even wrap our minds around? Tonight we're going to walk that trail together, step by step, clue by clue, and see where it takes us. So, grab your imaginary parka, maybe a snack. May and Huck are still eyeing my popcorn over here. And let's head into the Urals. We'll start with who these hikers were, what they were chasing, and how it all kicked off on that fateful January day in 1959. I promise you, by the time we're done, you'll be as hooked as I am, maybe even tossing your own theory into the mix. Sound good? All right, lore lovers, let's get moving. The Dyatlov Pass Incident awaits, and trust me, it's going to be one heck of a ride. All right, lore lovers, let's take a step back from the mystery for a minute and get to know the people at the heart of this story. I mean, we've talked about the Dyatlov Pass Incident as this big, eerie riddle, and it is. But before all the slashed tents and snowy footprints, there were 9 young folks, full of life, strapping on their skis and heading into the wild. Plus one more who got a lucky break. And so pull up a chair or, keep driving if you're on the road. And let's meet the Dyatlov group. Who were they? What made them tick? And what brought them together for this fateful trek? I've got my tea here. May and Huck are snoozing at my feet. Those German shepherds are loving this quiet night, and I'm ready to dive in. How about you? First off, let's set the scene. It's January 1959, and we're in Sverdlovsk, a gritty industrial city in Soviet Russia. Think smokestacks, steel, and a whole lot of snow. These 9 hikers were mostly students at the Ural Polytechnical Institute, a place churning out engineers and dreamers in equal measure. They weren't just random kids with backpacks. These were sharp, tough, outdoorsy types, certified in skiing and hiking, chasing something called a Grade 3 certification. Now, in the Soviet Union back then, that was the gold standard for mountaineers, the kind of badge that said you could handle anything Mother Nature threw at you. And trust me, in the Urals, she threw a lot. Blizzards, sub-zero cold, winds that'd knock you flat. This group, they lived for it. They weren't out there to mess around. They were bonded by a love for adventure, a hunger to test themselves against the wild. That's what pulled them together. A shared spark, a little bit crazy, a little bit fearless. Now, let's start with the man in charge, Igor Dyatlov himself. Picture a 23-year-old with a wiry frame, dark hair, and eyes that probably lit up when he talked about radios or mountains, because this guy was a double threat. Born in 1936, Igor grew up tinkering with gadgets. He was a radio engineering student, the kind who could build a transmitter out of spare parts and a prayer. Friends said he had this quiet intensity, a mind that didn't quit. But he wasn't just a brainiac locked in a lab. Igor was a born outdoorsman. By his early 20s, he'd logged serious miles in the Urals, leading trips, mapping routes, earning a rep as smart, disciplined, and cool under pressure. He wasn't flashy, no grand speeches or chest thumping, just steady like the guy you'd want calling the shots if a storm rolled in. And for this trek, a 190-mile ski haul to Gora Otorten, he hand-picked his team. That tells you something. He knew who he could trust when the stakes were high. Igor wasn't just their leader, he was their glue. So who'd he pick? Let's meet the crew. 9 personalities that leap off the page when you dig into their letters, diaries, and those final photographs. First up, Zenaida Kolmogorova, Zena to her friends. 22 years old, with a smile that could melt snow. She was studying engineering too, but Zena was the heart of this group. Warm, lively, always scribbling in her diary about the little things. One entry from an earlier trip reads, "The stars are so bright tonight, like they're cheering us on." She'd been hiking with Igor before, knew the ropes, and had this knack for keeping spirits up when legs got tired. Then there's Lyudmila Dubinina, 20, the youngest woman. Fierce, stubborn, built like she could wrestle a bear and win. Lyuda, her nickname, wasn't afraid to get her hands dirty. She'd hauled gear through blizzards, patched tents in the dark. Her folks said she'd come home from trips with wild stories, grinning ear to ear, pure grit wrapped in a big laugh. Next we've got Yuri Krivonyshenko, 23, the Joker, the soul of the campfire. They called him Georgie sometimes, a playful twist on his name. He was an engineering grad, already working construction, but his real gift was music. Carried a guitar or mandolin on every trek, strumming tunes to keep the cold at bay. His diary's full of one-liners. Day 3, my boots are plotting against me. He and Igor went way back, old pals who'd tease each other mercilessly but had each other's backs no matter what. Then there's Yuri Doroshenko, another Yuri, 21, quieter, steadier. He was studying hydraulics, had this calm vibe, big, broad-shouldered, the guy you'd lean on when the wind picked up. Friends said he didn't say much, but when he did, you listened. His letters home were short, practical. "Mom, don't worry, we've got plenty of food." Solid as a rock. Keep going. Rustam Slobodin, 23, another engineering student, all muscle and hustle. Rustic, they called him. He'd run marathons, skied like a pro, had this restless energy that kept the group moving. His final photo shows him grinning, hat cocked to one side, like he's daring the camera to keep up. Alexander Kolovatov, Sasha, 24, was the thinker. Introspective, always sketching maps or jotting notes. He'd studied nuclear physics before switching to metallurgy. Smart, curious, a little mysterious. His diary's more technical. Wind speed 15 knots, adjusting route tomorrow. Then Nikolai Thibault Brignol, another Sasha, 23, a French-Russian mix with a fancy name and a sharp mind. Graduated civil engineering, loved the outdoors, had this easy charm. His last letter home bragged, "I'll bring back stories to make your hair stand on end." And finally, Semyon Zolotaryov, 38, the outlier. Semyon was older, a war vet with tattoos snaking up his arms, nicknamed Sasha, too, because apparently they loved that name. He'd fought in World War II, survived Stalingrad, carried a toughness the younger ones admired. He wasn't a student, joined through a sports club, but fit right in, bringing experience and a few wild tales. His final photo's intense, scarred face, piercing eyes, like he's staring through the lens at something far off. These 9, they were tight-knit, a mix of brains, brawn, and heart. Diaries and letters paint a picture, laughing over burnt soup, racing each other down slopes, huddled in tents swapping dreams. One group shot from January 59 shows them arm in arm, snow dusting their coats, grinning like they're invincible. It's beautiful, and it's haunting, knowing what's coming. But there's one more we've got to talk about, the 10th hiker, Yuri Yudin. He's the one who walked away and lived. Yuri was 21, another engineering student, lanky and cheerful. His friends called him Yura. He'd hiked with Igor and Zina before, loved the mountains, signed up for this trek without a second thought. January 25th, they're all on a train to Evdel, laughing, snapping pics. His diary's giddy. Can't wait to hit the snow. But by January 28th, 2 days into the ski, his body throws a curveball. Rheumatism, an old knee injury, flares up bad. Picture him wincing, hobbling along, trying to tough it out. He can't keep up, and it kills him to admit it. Igor probably gave him that steady look, said, "Go back, we'll see you soon." So there's this moment, January 28th, a little settlement called Second Northern. Yuri's standing in the snow, bundled up, watching his 9 friends ski off into the white. He hugs Zina, claps Igor on the back, waves as they vanish around a bend, Lyuda yelling, "Take care, Yura," over her shoulder. He skis back alone, hitches a ride, heads home feeling rotten. Not just the knee, but leaving his crew. Later he'd say it felt like a punch in the gut watching them go. But that twist of fate had saved his life. Yuri Yudin became the 10th hiker, the one who turned back, the one who survived to tell their story. These were real people, lore lovers, not just names in a report. Igor's leadership, Zina's warmth, Georgie's songs, Semyon's scars. They were a family out there, chasing a thrill in a world that didn't play nice. And Yuri, he's our window into them, the guy left holding the memories. We'll get into what happened next because, oh man, it flips fast. But for now, let's hold on to this. 9 adventurers, 1 survivor, and a bond that shines through every letter, every photo. Ready to follow them into the snow? All right, we've met our hikers. 9 brave souls and 1 lucky survivor. And now it's time to hit the trail with them. Picture me here, settled in with my tea. Chamomile's still doing its job. And my German shepherds, May and Huck, sprawled out like they're ready to nap through this whole story. But me? I'm wide awake, because we're about to walk through the final days of the Dyatlov group, those last fleeting moments before everything went sideways. This is where we see them in action, skis on, spirits high, heading into the wild. So grab your imaginary snow gear, maybe a snack too, since Huck's eyeing my popcorn again, and let's follow them into the Ural Mountains. It's January 1959, and the journey's just beginning. Let's start with the route. Why'd they pick this trek anyway? These weren't folks out for a casual stroll. They were chasing something big, a 190-mile ski haul through the northern Urals, aiming for a peak called Gora Otorten. Now, the Urals aren't your postcard mountains. They're rugged, ancient, stretching like a spine across Russia, splitting Europe from Asia. The northern stretch, where our group was headed, is remote as it gets. Pine forest thick with snow, valleys that swallow sound, peaks that loom like silent giants. Otorten's name comes from the Mansi, the indigenous folks up there. Don't go there, it translates to, which, honestly, sounds like a dare to a crew like this. Why'd they choose it? Well, they were after that to Grade 3 certification, the Soviet Union's top hiking honor, and this route was the ticket. It was tough, uncharted enough to test their mettle, but not so insane they couldn't handle it, or so they thought. Igor Dyatlov, their leader, mapped it out himself. 190 miles of frozen rivers, wind-swept slopes, and nights under the stars, and to them it wasn't just a trek, it was a proving ground, a chance to push limits, and come back with stories to tell. So how did it all kick off? January 23rd, 1959, yes, they register their route with the sports club in Sverdlovsk. Igor's meticulous, paperwork squared away, and 2 days later they're on a train to Ivdel. Imagine that ride, 9 friends crammed into a clunky Soviet rail car, wood benches, frosty windows, passing around bread and sausage, laughing over dumb jokes. Yuri Krivonishenko's probably strumming his guitar, Zenaida Kolmogorova snapping photos with her little camera. They get to Ivdel, a grim little town, all smokestacks and mud, and hitch a truck ride to Vijay, a logging outpost on the edge of nowhere. By January 27th, they're skiing, boots crunching into fresh powder, packs heavy with gear, breath fogging in the air. The group's 10 strong at this point. Yuri Yudin's still with them, knee holding up for now, and they're buzzing. Diaries and photos from those first days are like gold dust, piecing together their last recorded moments before the split. Let's crack open those diaries, because, oh man, they're a window into these kids' hearts. Zenaida's scribbling away on January 26th. The snow's so deep it's up to our knees, but the sun's out. Georgie's singing off-key again. That's Yuri Krivonishenko, the Joker. His own diary's got a line from the 27th. Day 2. My socks are plotting a mutiny, but the fire's warm, and Lyuda's soup isn't half bad. Lyudmila Dubanina, she's the tough one. Doesn't write much, but there's a note. Made camp by the river. Wind's picking up. Alexander Kolovatov, the thinker, jots technical stuff. Altitude 600 meters, adjusting compass bearings tomorrow. Photos back this up. Grainy snaps of Rustem Slobodan flexing by a frozen stream. Nikolai Thibault Brignol adjusting his hat. Semyon Zolotaryov staring off like he's sizing up the horizon. One shot's pure joy. Igor and Zena, arm in arm, grinning, snow dusting their coats. They're tired but alive, pushing north, laughing through the cold. January the 28th rolls around, and that's when things shift. They're at a little outpost called 2nd Northern, just a few shacks, a dot in the wilderness, and Yuri Yudin's knee gives out. Rheumatism, an old ache, flares up so bad he can't ski. Picture him there, lanky and frustrated, trying to tough it out while his friends set up camp. His diary's gut-wrenching. Can't keep up, legs like lead, hate leaving them. Igor's practical, probably says, "Rest up, Yura, we'll catch you on the flip side." And the others rally around. Zena hugs him, Lyuda claps his shoulder. Georgie cracks a joke to lighten the mood. Next morning, January 28th, Yuri waves goodbye. 9 figures ski off into the white, their shouts fading as he turns back alone. That's the split. 10 becomes 9, and the trek keeps rolling. Yuri's the last to see them alive, and he carries that weight forever. Now let's talk about their last known communication, postcards they sent back home, little scraps of ink that families clung to later. Before they left Vijay, a few of them dashed off quick notes. Nothing fancy, just Soviet postcards with stamps and scribbles. Igor's to his sister. "Heading out tomorrow. Weather's good, don't worry. Tell Mom I'll fix the radio when I'm back." Classic Igor, calm, practical, a nod to his tinkering. Zena's to her folks. "We're off to Oterton. Snow's beautiful. Wish you could see it." Her cheer jumps off the page. Nikolai, Sasha, writes his mom. "Team's strong, food's packed, stories for you soon." Yuri Doroshenko's short. "All set. Be home by mid-February." Did they sense anything unusual? Not a whiff. No hints of dread, no eerie vibes. These are kids excited for an adventure, not spooked by shadows. Postcards hit mailboxes days later, while they're already deep in the wild. Last words from a world they'd never come back to. From there, the 9 press on, January 29th, 30th, 31st, skiing through the Lozva River Valley, a ribbon of ice winding north. Diary's thinning out, but photos keep the story alive. January 30th, Rustum's posing with a ski pole like a knight with a lance, Semyon's in the background smirking. January 31st, Zena snaps Georgie mid-laugh, mittens full of snow he's about to chuck. Kolovatov notes. Across the pass, wind's brutal, camping soon. They're tired, legs burning, packs heavy, but they're close to Otterton, maybe 2 days out. That night, January 31st, they set up camp one last time on a slope called Kolat Shakal. Yeah, you heard that right. Dead Mountain in Mansi. It's not as grim as it sounds. A gentle incline, maybe 20 degrees, flanked by pines and open to the sky. They pick it to avoid avalanches. Smart, practical, vintage Igor. Let's linger on that last camp because it's where the clock stops ticking. They dig a platform into the snow, standard move to level the ground, pitch their big canvas tent, lash it down against the wind. Inside it's tight but cozy. 10 feet long, packed with sleeping bags, a little stove they'd light for warmth. Photos from that day, probably January 31st, show the setup. Igor's checking ropes, Lyuda's hauling gear, Sasha Kolovatov sketching the ridge. Georgie's diary has a last line. "Tense up, wind's howling, but we're snug." Zena writes, "Snow's heavy tonight, hope it clears by morning." They're beat but upbeat, cooking supper, maybe singing, swapping plans for the push to Oderton. Outside, the wind's picking up, -20, -25 Fahrenheit. Stars piercing the black sky over Dead Mountain. It's their last night, calm, ordinary, alive. That's where we leave them, 9 friends in a tent, fire flickering, snow piling up outside. They're supposed to reach Otterton by February 2nd, loop back by the 12th. Igor's promised a telegram to say, "We made it." But February 12th comes, and there's nothing. No word, no sign. Families wait, hope fades, and by February 20th, the search parties head out. What they find on Kolat Shakal, well, that's where this tale turns dark. But for now, let's hold on to these last days, the trek, the laughs, the postcards home. These were their final moments, lore lovers, bright, bold, and beautifully human. Ready to see what comes next? Let's take a breath, because it's about to get wild. So, we've followed our hikers through their final days, laughing, skiing, setting up that last camp on Dead Mountain, and now it's time to step into the part of this story where everything flips upside down. We're talking about the discovery, what investigators found when they finally tracked down the Dyatlov group. Spoiler alert, it's not a happy ending. Picture yourself trudging through the snow with me. No rush, just taking it slow. And let's see what they uncovered on that frozen slope. Grab a blanket if you need it. This one's going to get under your skin. Let's set the stage. It's February 20th, 1959. 8 days passed when Igor Dyatlov promised that telegram home, and worries turned to panic back in Sverdlovsk. Families are pacing, the sports club's buzzing, and search parties muster up fast. Students from the Ural Polytechnical Institute, local guides who know the mountains, even military choppers and planes whirring over the Urals. The northern range is a beast. Hundreds of miles of snow and pine, valleys that swallow sound, wind that'll freeze your bones. They've got a rough route from Igor's plan, Vijay to Oterten and back, but it's like hunting for a whisper in a storm. Days crawl by, teams fan out, boots crunching through drifts, breath fogging in the -20 air. Then February 26th, a breakthrough. Someone spots something on a slope called Kholat Syakhl, Dead Mountain in Mansi, a name that feels like a bad omen now. And what they find there? Oh, lore lovers, it's where this tale goes from adventure to nightmare. First thing they see is the tent, pitched on that gentle incline, maybe 20 degrees, snow piled around it. And it's wrong, right from the jump. The canvas is still standing, lashed tight, like Igor taught them, but the sides slashed open, not torn by wind or claws, but cut from the inside. Picture that for a second. Jagged gashes, 3 or 4 of them, like someone grabbed a knife and hacked their way out in a blind rush. Step closer with me, imagine peering in. It's a frozen snapshot of chaos, boots lined up by the entrance, coats draped over packs, sleeping bags unrolled, a little stove half set like they'd been about to cook. Bread, sausage, a thermos, untouched on a makeshift table. Zenita's diary's open. Snow's heavy tonight. I hope it clears. No blood, no claw marks, no signs of a fight with anything outside. Just everything they needed to live left behind. Footprints spill out, bare feet, socks, maybe one guy in a single boot, heading downhill into the dark. Whatever happened, they didn't walk out calm. They fled, half-dressed, into the freezing cold, like something chased them out of their only shelter. What could do that? The searchers follow those tracks, orderly at first, then fanning out frantic down the slope about a half-mile to a big cedar tree by a frozen creek. That's where they find the first bodies, Yuri Krivonashenko and Yuri Doroshenko, Georgie and Yura to their friends. They're stripped down to their underwear, shorts, undershirts, skin gray and stiff, frozen where they fell. Their hands are scratched raw, fingertips burned, like they'd clawed at the cedar or the pitiful fire they'd tried to start. Embers are dead now, but branches are snapped off the tree, 5, 10, 15 feet up. Desperate moves to keep that flame alive. Picture them there, shivering, teeth chattering, -25, clawing at their bare skin, climbing for wood as the cold closed in. It's heartbreaking stuff. 2 buddies who'd strummed guitars and swapped jokes, now fighting a losing battle against the night. Keep going with me, because the bodies are scattered like breadcrumbs leading back to the tent. A little higher up, maybe 300 yards, they find Igor Dyatlov himself, curled up in the snow, clutching a birch sapling like it was his last anchor. He's got a coat on, socks, but no boots. Half dressed, like he'd grabbed what he could and bolted. His face is calm, almost peaceful, frozen mid-crawl toward the tent, like he was trying to get back, to fix whatever went wrong. Nearby, Zenaida Kolmogorova, Zena, the group's heart, is face down, hands bloody and torn from clawing through the snow. She's got a jacket, one shoe, hair matted with ice. She'd fought to move, inch by inch, until she couldn't anymore. Then Rustem Slobodin, rustic, further up, closer to the tent, better dressed, socks, pants, a coat. But his skull's cracked, no blood outside, like he'd stumbled hard and didn't get up. These three, Igor, Zena, rustic, they're spread out, like they split from the cedar and tried to retrace their steps. Hypothermia is the first guess. Barefoot in a blizzard, it'd take you fast. But why'd they run in the first place? That's just the start, because the real twist comes months later when the snow melts. May 4th, 1959. Searchers comb the slope again, and down in a ravine, about 250 feet from the cedar under 13 feet of snow, they find the last four: Lyudmila Dubinina, Alexander Kolovatov, Nikolai Thibault-Brignol, and Semyon Zolotaryov. This is where it gets downright bizarre, where the bodies stop making sense. Lyuda's chest is smashed, ribs snapped like twigs, heart and lungs crushed, and her face, her eyes and tongue are gone, just missing, leaving hollow sockets and a gaping mouth. Nikolai, Sasha, his skull's caved in, brain hemorrhaged, a blow that'd drop you instantly. Semyon and Alexander, Sasha, Kolovatov, same deal, ribs broken, shoulders shattered, organs pulped. But here's the kicker: no external wounds, no bruises, no cuts, no scrapes to match the carnage inside. It's like they were crushed by something massive, an invisible fist, a car, a fall from a cliff. But the skin's untouched, the snow around them clean. How does that happen? Let's linger on that missing eyes and tongue thing, because, oh man, it's the most infamous detail, the one that haunts every retelling. Lyudmila is the poster child for it, found kneeling against a rock, head tilted back, those empty spaces staring up at nothing. What could explain it? The practical folks say scavengers, birds, foxes, picking at soft tissue after she died. It's gruesome, but it happens. Nature's not sentimental. Except, why just her? Why not the others exposed for weeks? And why so clean? No bite marks, no mess. Some whisper something darker. Chemical burns, a force that stripped them away, a human hand covering tracks. There's no proof, just questions. But it's the kind of image that sticks. You don't shake that off easy. A 20-year-old girl, tough as nails, left like that in the snow. Then there's the radiation, because, yeah, it gets weirder. When they autopsied the bodies, rushed, hush-hush, in a little Soviet morgue, they tested their clothes. Lyuda's sweater, Semyon's pants, a couple others. Traces of radiation, low levels, but there. Not enough to kill, not natural for a ski trip in the middle of nowhere. Where'd it come from? The Urals weren't Chernobyl, nuclear tests were hundreds of miles off, but this was Cold War Russia, a land of secrets. Was it fallout from something airborne? Contaminated gear from their engineering school? A Geiger counter clicked over those threads, and suddenly, this isn't just a hiking mishap, it's a sci-fi twist, and the report buries it. One line, elevated but not hazardous, but it's fuel for the fire, a whisper of something bigger. And then the orange orbs. This is where it goes full X-Files. Around early February 1959, right when the hikers were out there, locals and other search teams reported strange lights in the sky. Glowing orange spheres drifting over the Urals, slow and silent. One guy, a Mansi hunter, swore he saw them February 2nd, the night they likely died, hovering low, then vanishing. Another team, searching weeks later, logged fireballs on February 17th. The Soviet files mention them, brief, vague, but they're real, witnessed by folks miles apart. Were they flares, military tests, weather weirdness, ball lightning maybe, or bear with me, something not of this world? Those orbs haunt this story, glowing dots on a dark map, tying the hiker's fate to something beyond the snow. So what do we have? A tent slashed from the inside and panic driving them out. Bodies scattered, some half-dressed by a dying fire, others crushed with no marks. Missing eyes and tongues, a detail that chills to the bone. Radiation traces, faint, unexplained, and orange orbs lighting up the night, witnessed but unanswered. The searcher stood there, February 1959, staring at this scene, tent flapping, footprints fading, a cedar stark against the white. They didn't know what they'd found, not really. Hypothermia, sure, for some. Blunt trauma for others, but no why, no how. The Soviet report calls it a compelling natural force, seals it, locks it away. But us? We're not done, lore lovers. This is where the theories start, and trust me, they're a wild ride. Ready to dig in? Let's take it slow and figure out what hit Dead Mountain. We've just walked through the grim discovery on Dead Mountain, slashed tents, scattered bodies, all those haunting details, and now it's time to see what the powers that be did about it. I'm cozied up here with my tea, starting to think I should have spiked it for this one, because it gets twisty. And my German shepherds, May and Huck, are sprawled out, snoozing like they don't have a care in the world. Me, I'm wide awake, ready to dive into the official investigation of the Dyatlov Pass Incident. This is where the Soviet machine kicks in, and trust me, it's a story all its own, full of frustration, secrecy, and just enough weirdness to keep us hooked. So settle in with me, maybe grab a snack, and let's unpack what happened when the USSR took the reins. No rush, we're taking this nice and slow. Picture the scene. It's late February 1959, and words trickling back to Sverdlovsk that something's gone horribly wrong in the Urals. The search parties, students, locals, military, have found the hikers, or what's left of them, and the families are reeling. Igor's mom clutching that last postcard, Zena's folks pacing, Yuri Yudin probably sick with guilt for turning back. This isn't just a local tragedy anymore, it's too big, too strange. By early March, Soviet authorities take over, because in the USSR, when things get messy, the state steps in hard and fast. We're talking the Ministry of Internal Affairs, the Regional Prosecutor's Office, maybe a whisper of the KGB lurking in the shadows. This is Cold War Russia. 1959, peak paranoia, with the U.S. racing them to space and secrets piling up like snowdrifts. A group of bright young students dying in the mountains. That's not just a hiking mishap, it's a problem, and the government wants it handled pronto. So they send in the big guns. Lev Ivanov, a seasoned prosecutor from the Sverdlovsk region, gets tapped to lead the case. Sharp guy, balding, probably chain-smoking through the stress. He's got a team, detectives, forensic docs, military grunts, descending on Kholat Syakhl like ants on a picnic. They're not messing around. Choppers buzzing overhead, trucks rumbling up frozen trails, guys in heavy coats stomping through the snow. March 1959, They're hauling bodies back to Evedale, a grim little town with a morgue barely big enough for this, and setting up shop. The tent's bagged up, footprints photographed, gear cataloged. Everything's tagged and tracked with that Soviet efficiency. But here's the thing. This isn't an open book investigation. The USSR doesn't do transparency, especially not in '59, when every glitch could be ammo for the West. From the jump, there's a vibe. Solve it, wrap it, bury it. And that's exactly what they try to do. Let's talk about the cause of death, because this is where it gets maddening. Ivanov's team runs autopsies, quick, no nonsense, in a cold room with flickering lights. 6 of the 9, Georgy, Yuri Doroshenko, Igor, Zina, Rustik, Sasha Kolovatov, they pin on hypothermia. Makes sense, right? Half-dressed in -20, barefoot in a blizzard. You're not lasting long. Lungs full of ice crystals, hearts slowed to a stop. Textbook cold death. But the other 3, Lyuda, Sasha, Tybo, Brignol, Semyon, they're a different story. Lyuda's ribs are shattered and heart pulped. Sasha's skull's cracked like an egg. Semyon's chest is a mess. Bones snapped, organs crushed. No external wounds, though. No bruises, no cuts, just devastation inside. The docs scribble, massive blunt force trauma. But how? A fall? A blast? They don't say. Here's where it lands. May 28, 1959, Ivanov signs off on the final report and the official cause of death for all 9. An unknown compelling force. Yep, that's it. 4 words, vague as a fog bank, stamped and sealed. Picture me raising an eyebrow here, because, come on, what does that even mean? It's like saying, something happened, shrug, next case. No details, no theories, just a big Soviet shoulder shrug. Families get the news. Zina's dad storms the prosecutor's office, demanding answers. Igor's mom weeps over a letter that says nothing. Ivanov later admitted it bugged him, called it frustratingly incomplete in private, but orders were orders. The state wanted it done, and unknown compelling force was the bow they tied on this messy package. It's the kind of conclusion that doesn't close anything. It cracks the door wide open. Now, let's dig into the sealed records and missing files, because this is where the secrecy really kicks in. The investigation wraps in May '59, 3 months, lightning fast for something this weird. And the files don't just get shelved, they get locked away. Classified, stamped top secret, shoved into some dusty vault in Sverdlovsk or Moscow. We're talking autopsy reports, photos, witness statements, hundreds of pages gone from sight. The tent, the gear, the clothes with those radiation traces, all boxed up, carted off, no public access. Families beg for copies. Lyuda's mom writes letters pleading, but they're stonewalled. State security, they're told, or just flat out ignored. Even Yuri Yudin, the 10th hiker, gets the brush off when he asks to see the case. He's left with nothing but memories and guilt. And it gets worse because stuff starts disappearing. When researchers poke at this decades later, after the USSR falls in '91, they find gaps. Pages torn out of Ivanov's report, photos missing from negatives, whole witness logs just gone. The radiation tests, 1 line in the file. Elevated levels detected, no data, no follow-up. The orange orb sightings, those glowing lights locals saw, mentioned once, then scrubbed. Someone, or a lot of someones, went through this with a red pen and a shredder. Why? Cold War paranoia is the easy answer. 9 dead students in a sensitive region could have been a PR mess, especially if it tied to military ops. But suppressing it for decades, 30 years, until the '90s when bits leak out, feels bigger. Files don't vanish by accident. They're buried on purpose. And that silence, It's louder than any explanation they gave. Which brings us to the conspiracy, because this isn't some tinfoil hat thing cooked up on X last week. Even back then, in '59, people smelled a cover-up. Investigators, locals, even the searchers who saw it firsthand. Lev Ivanov himself, he's the key. Years later, in the '90s, he breaks his silence. Old, retired, chain-smoking still, and says he never bought the natural force line. Wrote an article claiming he was forced to shut it down, hinted at fireballs in the sky, orders from above to zip it. Said he'd wanted to chase the radiation and the orbs, but got a call. Close it now. Who was on the other end? He wouldn't name names, KGB, military brass, someone high. But the pressure was real. Locals in Evdel and Vijay, they're whispering too. Mansi hunters, loggers, folks who knew those mountains, they'd seen those orange lights, heard booms some nights. One guy, a grizzled trapper, told searchers that wasn't no avalanche, something fell from above. Another swore he'd found odd metal scraps near the pass, gone when he went back. Search team members, students like Valentin Yakimenko, noticed things. The tent cut's too clean for panic, the body's too mangled for a fall. Yakimenko later said, "We all thought it. Military did something, and they didn't want us asking." Families picked up the vibe. Semyon's sister pushed for answers, got threats instead. Stop, or else. By summer '59, the area is sealed off. No hiking, no questions, just a big keep out sign for 3 years. Think about that. Investigators doubting their own report, locals spinning tales, evidence vanishing like smoke. This wasn't a tidy wrap-up. It was a lid slammed shut on a boiling pot. The Soviet machine rolled in, efficient, cold, secretive, and left us with unknown compelling force, a phrase that's mocked as much as it's feared. Sealed records, missing files. They didn't kill the mystery, and they fed it. Even in '59, the conspiracy was brewing. Not wild theories yet, but a gut feeling something big got hushed. Was it a storm gone wrong? A test they stumbled into? Something we can't name? The official line's a dead end, Lord lovers, but it's the start of everything else. Next up, we'll crack open those theories, because trust me, they're a roller coaster. Ready to ride? Let's ease into it. All right, we've walked through the discovery, poked at that vague Soviet investigation, and now it's time to start unpacking the theories, because, oh man, this is where the Dyatlov Pass Incident gets really fun. We're kicking off with theory number 1, the avalanche. Hands down the most scientific explanation out there, the one you'll see in textbooks and documentaries with smart folks nodding at charts. So let's ease into this one together, nice and slow, like we're sipping our drinks by a fire, and see if it holds up. Ready? Let's slide into the snow. Picture this. It's the night of February 1st or 2nd, 1959. Experts can't pin the exact date, and our 9 hikers are tucked into their tent on Koletsyakal Dead Mountain. They've dug a platform into the slope. Smart move to keep it level. Lash the canvas down tight, and they're probably beat from skiing all day. Maybe Georgie's strumming a quiet tune, Zena's scribbling in her diary, Igor's checking the stove. Outside it's dark, wind howling, minus 25 Fahrenheit, snow piling up. Then, bam, something hits. The avalanche theory says a slab of snow, not the fluffy Hollywood kind, but a stiff, heavy chunk breaks loose above them. It's what they call a delayed avalanche. Ice and wind build up over days, then snap without warning. That slab slams the tent, not burying it, just smacking it hard, and the hikers panic. They grab a knife, slash their way out, and bolt into the freezing cold, too freaked to grab a coats or boots. From there, hypothermia and injuries take over. Sounds neat, right? This idea's got legs, especially since 2021, when Swiss scientists Johann Gaum and Alexander Puzerin ran some fancy simulations. They're like, look, the slope was 23 degrees steeper than it seems, and a cut they made to level the tent weakened the snowpack. Add a storm-dumping fresh powder, and you've got a recipe for a slab avalanche. Small, maybe a few tons, sliding 50 feet or so. It hits fast. Think a wall of ice at 20 miles an hour, crushing a few inside, spooking the rest to run. The blunt trauma, Lyuda's ribs, Sasha's skull, matches getting squashed by snow. The barefoot flight fits blind terror. It's clean, natural. No tinfoil hats needed. Russia even reopened the case in 2019 and stamped avalanche as the official answer. Case closed, they say. Me? I'm nodding along, sipping my tea, 'cause sure, it's the most scientific theory out there and the one you can graph and measure. But let's not shut the book yet. There's more to chew on. Here's a twist on it, the katabatic wind hypothesis, which sounds like something from a sci-fi flick, but it's real. Katabatic winds are these rare, nasty downbursts, cold air rushing down a slope like a freight train. Imagine you're in that tent, snug and warm, and suddenly, wham, a gust slams in at 60, 70 miles an hour, shaking the canvas like a rag doll. The theory goes, maybe it wasn't just snow, but this wind kicking off the slab, or mimicking one. It's loud, sudden, freaky. Could have sounded like the mountain was cracking apart. The hikers, half asleep, think, avalanche? Slash the tent, bolt downhill, no time to think. Some tie this to infrasound. Low-frequency waves from the wind that mess with your head, spiking panic or nausea. It's a cool angle, nature gone wild, no conspiracy needed. I'm picturing it now. Wind screaming, tent flapping, Igor yelling, "Out now!" It's got that dramatic punch, doesn't it? But, hold up, because here's where the avalanche theory starts to wobble. And I'm not just stirring the pot for fun. These are real cracks. Problem 1, no clear avalanche debris. When the searchers got to Kolotsiakal on February 26th, they found the tent still standing, not buried, not smashed, just slashed and flapping. No snow pile, no slide marks, no churned up mess you'd expect from even a small slab crashing through. Photos show it, canvas upright, stakes in place, footprints clean around it. An avalanche that hits hard enough to kill but leaves no trace. That's a stretch. I've seen snow slides. Heck, I've shoveled my driveway after a storm. And they don't tidy up after themselves. The Swiss guys say it was localized, a tiny slide that stopped short. But come on, shouldn't there be something? Next snag, those scattered bodies. If an avalanche hits, you'd think everyone's either buried where they stood or running together, all right? But it's a mess. Georgie and Yura are half-dressed by the cedar, a half-mile down, hands burned from a fire they tried to light. Igor, Zena, Rustic. They're spread out, crawling back toward the tent, some shallowly buried under a foot or two of snow. Then the ravine 4, Lyuda, Sasha, Semyon, Kolovatov, 250 feet away, under 13 feet of drift. How's that work? An avalanche smacks the tent, sends them scattering like pinballs, but only buries some, and not deep where it hit. Searchers dug around. No big snowpack pinning them, just natural drift from weeks later. It's like the mountain played hopscotch with them, some caught, some not. I'm scratching my head here, Huck snoring louder than my doubts, but I'm not sold. Biggest problem, would experienced hikers really panic and flee without shoes or gear? This is the one that gets me, because these weren't rookies. Igor Dyatlov, he's led treks through blizzards, mapped routes like a pro. Zena, Lyuda, Rustic, They've skied the Urals, camped in storms, earned grade 2 certs. Semyon's a war vet. He's seen worse than snow. They knew avalanches, taught to spot risky slopes, dig snow pits, listen for that telltale whumph of unstable layers. They picked Kholat Syakhl because it was safe, 20 degrees below the 30-degree danger zone, no steep cliffs above. If a slab hits, say, it wakes them, bangs the tent, wouldn't they grab something? Boots, coats, a flashlight. Diaries say they had a stove going. Why not dig in, ride it out? Instead, they slash out, barefoot, in underwear, and run a half-mile downhill, leaving it all behind. Panic's one thing, but this crew? I'm imagining Igor barking orders. Stay calm, gear up, not flailing into the dark like it's a horror movie. And those cuts, 3, 4 slashes, clean and deliberate, don't scream blind terror. They're planned like they chose to leave. An avalanche might spook you, sure. Katabatic wind might rattle your brain. But these pros abandoning ship that fast, that dumb. I've hiked a little myself, not Ural's level, mind you, and I'd at least snag my socks. May's looking at me like, humans are weird, and I can't argue. So where's that leave us? The avalanche theory's got chops. Science backs it. Math checks out. Russia stamped it in 2019. A delayed slab, maybe sparked by a katabatic wind, could have hit hard. Crushed a few, freaked the rest. Sent them running to their doom. The injuries fit. Blunt force from snow's no joke. And hypothermia's a killer. It's the official answer, the one you nod at if you like your mysteries neat. But no debris, scattered bodies, seasoned hikers bolting like rookies. It's got holes, big snowy ones. I'm not tossing it out. Nature's wild and mountains don't play nice, but it feels like a square peg in a round hole. What do you think? Avalanche vibes? Or are we missing something? Next up, we'll twist into weirder territory because this is legends and lore, and we're just warming up. Let's ease on to the next theory. Stay with me. All right. We've poked at the avalanche theory, nice and scientific, but a little wobbly. And now it's time to swing into something juicier. It's time to dive into theory number 2, a military experiment gone wrong. This is where we trade snow slabs for something darker, shadowy Soviet tests, weird weapons, and a government that didn't want anyone asking questions. So, settle in with me, nice and slow, like we're sneaking through the woods. And let's see if the hikers stumbled into something they weren't supposed to. Ready? Let's crack this open. Picture it, 1959, Soviet Russia, the height of the Cold War. The USSR's in a full-on arms race with the US, nukes, missiles, spy planes, you name it. The Ural Mountains, where our hikers were skiing, aren't just a pretty wilderness. They're a testing ground, a big, snowy backyard for military secrets. Bases dot the region, some known, some hush-hush, tucked in valleys, hidden by pines. The theory goes Igor Dyatlov and his crew, chasing their grade 3 badge, ski right into a live zone, a spot where the Soviet brass is playing with shiny new toys. Maybe it's a missile test, a chemical drop, something experimental, and it goes wrong. Boom, flash, chaos. The hikers are caught in the crossfire, collateral damage in a war they didn't sign up for. Suddenly, those slashed tents and scattered bodies aren't nature's doing. They're man-made, and the government's got a mess to clean up. Let's dig into that Cold War vibe, because this isn't sci-fi, it's history. The Soviets were hardcore in '59, 2 years off Sputnik, racing to beat the Americans to the moon, testing all kinds of wild tech. The Urals were perfect, remote, rugged, easy to cordon off. Declassified files, cracked open after the USSR fell, show missile launches, bomb drops, even rumors of radiation experiments in the region. Not right on Kolachiakal, mind you. Known sites like Kapistan Yar are hundreds of miles south, but secret tests? They didn't advertise those. Locals in Ivdel, near the hiker's route, later whispered about closed zones, stretches of forest where soldiers shooed folks away, no questions allowed. Could our 9 have skied past a warning they never saw, too faded, too buried in snow, and stumbled into a live fire exercise? It's not crazy. Tragic, but not crazy. Now, let's talk weapons, because this theory's got some wild ones to explain those bizarre injuries. First up, parachute mines. These are nasty little devils, small explosives dropped from planes, rigged to float down on chutes and detonate mid-air. The Soviets loved them. Cheap, sneaky, perfect for testing in remote spots. Imagine one going off near the tent. Maybe a misfire, a dud that drifts too close. The shockwave, a wall of compressed air. Hits hard, no shrapnel needed. Lyuta's crushed ribs, Sasha's smashed skull, Semyon's mangled chest. Blunt trauma with no cuts or bruises. That's a shockwave signature. The tent's intact, no blast marks, because it's the air doing the damage, not fire or metal. The rest hear it, boom. Think the mountains falling, slash out, and run barefoot into the night. Panic sets in, hypothermia finishes the job. It's grim, but it tracks. Then there's the sonic weapons angle, because, yeah, the Soviets were into that too. Think infrasound or ultrasound. Low or high frequency waves you can't hear, but feel. They'd been tinkering with this stuff since the 40s. Tools to disorient, scare, even kill without a trace. Picture a test rig on a ridge, an ugly metal box humming away, or a plane buzzing overhead, beaming sonic pulses. Inside the tent it hits, nausea, dread, a roar in your skull. Igor's crew freaks out. Georgie drops his guitar, Zena clutches her ears, slash the canvas, bolt into the cold. The waves could have been strong enough to rupture organs, Lyuta's heart, Sasha's brain, without breaking skin. It's sci-fi, sure, but the Cold War was a sci-fi playground. Declassified docs show they tested sonic gear on animals, prisoners even. Could Dead Mountain have been a proving ground, and the hikers guinea pigs by mistake? The injuries are the hook, because they're so weird, right? No cuts, no burns, just internal carnage like a car crash with no car. Parachute mines explain the blunt force. Shockwaves don't mess around. I've read about World War II blasts snapping ribs from blocks away. Sonic weapons. Trickier, less proof, more guesswork. But they fit that unknown compelling force vibe the Soviets slapped on the report. Radiation on their clothes. Those faint traces. Could be fallout from a test gone sloppy, drifting down like ash. And those orange orbs locals saw. Glowing lights in the sky, February 59. Test flares, misfired rockets. A plane dropping something odd. It's not perfect. Where's the wreckage? But it paints a picture. 9 kids in the wrong place, wrong time. Caught in a Soviet oopsie they couldn't admit. Which brings us to the suppressed investigation, because if this was military, the government had every reason to slam the lid shut. Think about it. March 59, Lev Ivanov's team rolls in. Prosecutor, forensic guys, military backup. They're thorough. Photos, footprints, autopsies. But fast. Too fast. By May the 28th, it's done. 3 months flat. Case closed. Unknown compelling force. Families beg for answers. Zena's dad storms the office. Semyon's sister writes letters, but they're brushed off. State secret. Go home. Files get sealed, classified, locked in a vault. Not just shelved, but buried. Yuri Yudin asked to see them. Nothing. Later in the 90s, when bits leak out, pages are missing, radiation notes, orb reports, gone. Why rush it? Why hide it? Cold War's the answer. 59 was tense. The Soviets couldn't admit a screw-up. 9 dead students from a botched test. That's a propaganda nightmare. U.S. headlines screaming, "Russians kill their own kids." Ivanov himself spills tea decades later. Says he was ordered to drop it. Hinted at fireballs and higher-ups leaning on him. "Close it," they said. "No why, no who. Just do it." The area's banned for 3 years. No hikers, no questions, just a big keep out vibe. Searchers noticed military types sniffing around, soldiers in jeeps, choppers buzzing more than needed. One guy swore he saw uniformed men carting boxes off the slope. Evidence, maybe? It's not proof, but it's smoke. And where there's smoke, there's fire. Let's play it out. I'm Igor, you're Xena, we're in the tent. Night's quiet then, boom, a blast overhead or a hum that twists your gut. We slash out, run, shockwaves hit, some drop, the rest scatter. Military scrambles, oops, civilians down, cleans it up, slams the file shut. Radiation's a souvenir, orbs are flares, injuries are the cost. It's dark, sure. May's giving me that humans are nuts look. But it fits the era. The USSR tested wild stuff, parachute mines in the 50s, sonic gear by the 60s. Why not here? No wreckage bugs me. Wind, snow, or cleanup could have erased it. But the suppression? That's the clincher. They didn't want us looking. So, military experiment gone wrong. Soviet weapons testing gone haywire. It's got teeth. Explains the injuries, the secrecy, those creepy details like radiation and orbs. Parachute mines or sonic blasts could have done it. Panic, trauma, a rush to hide the truth. But no hard proof, no missile bits, no declassified whoops memo. Still, in 59 Russia, with a government that loves shadows, I'm not ruling it out. What do you think? Military mess? Or too far-fetched? Next theory's wilder. Yeti's coming, so let's ease into that. Stay with me. We're just getting started. Well, we've sifted through avalanches and military mishaps. Serious stuff, right? And now it's time to take a little detour into the wild side. I'm sipping my tea here, keeping cozy, while May and Huck snooze at my feet. Those German shepherds have no clue we're about to chase something hairy and mysterious. We're diving into theory number 3. The Yeti attack. Yep, you heard me. A big, hulking creature stomping through the snow. This one's a fan favorite. It's got that campfire scare factor. And I'm all for it because legends and lore isn't just about facts. It's about the stories that make your spine tingle. So settle in with me. Nice and slow, like we're peering into the dark. And let's see if a Yeti might have paid our hikers a visit. Ready? Let's tiptoe into this one. First off, let's set the mood, because this theory's got roots in the land itself. It's February 1959, and our 9 hikers are deep in the northern Urals, a place that's not just cold and remote, but steeped in lore. The Mansi, the indigenous folks who've lived there forever, have tales of the mink, a massive hairy beast, their version of Bigfoot or Sasquatch. Picture it, 8 feet tall, shaggy fur, eyes glinting in the dark, roaming the peaks like a king nobody messes with. The hikers, smart scientific types, probably laughed off those stories around the campfire. Georgie might have strummed a goofy tune about it, Xena jotting in her diary. No Yetis yet. But what if they were wrong? What if something big, something primal, crossed their path on Kholat Syakhl, Dead Mountain, and turned their trek into a nightmare? It's the kind of idea that's half ridiculous, half terrifying, and we're going to lean into both halves. Now, let's talk about the star of this theory, the infamous Yeti photo. One of the hikers, nobody's sure who, maybe Sasha Kolovatov or Nikolai with their cameras, snapped a picture that's become legend. It's grainy, black and white, taken in the days before they died, January 31st or so. You see snow, pines, a slope stretching into the distance, and there, off to the side, a dark, blurry figure. It's tall, upright, shadowy. No face, no details, just a shape that doesn't quite fit. Could be a person, rustic posing, Igor in a coat. But it's weird. The stance is off, the edge is fuzzy, like it's moving or too far to focus. They found it on a roll of film in Sasha's camera, frame 17 or 18, depending who you ask. Undeveloped until the searchers got it back. When it hit the public years later, folks lost their minds. "That's a Yeti," they yelled. I've squinted at it. Online scans are murky, but it's eerie. Imagine snapping that, laughing it off, then something finds you in the night. So how's this play out? The theory says it's late, February 1st or 2nd. The tent's pitched, stove flickering, wind howling outside. Maybe they hear it first. A low growl, a crunch in the snow. Something huge, 8 feet, 500 pounds, lumbers up. A Yeti, a mink, whatever you call it. It's mad, spooked, territorial. It doesn't claw the tent. It slams it, a paw or fist smashing down. Inside, chaos. Lyuda, Sasha, Semyon take the hit, bones snapping under insane force. The rest, Zina, Igor, Georgie, grab a knife, slash out, and run, too terrified to grab gear. They scatter, barefoot, half-dressed, into the cold, the beast roaring behind. Georgie and Ural hit the cedar, climbing for safety. The others stumble, fall, freeze. The ravine four, crushed and tossed, get the worst of it. The Yeti's rage leaving them broken. It's a horror flick scene, primal, brutal, and oh so chilling. Those crushed bones and extreme force, that's the meat of this theory, because lore lovers, those injuries are nuts. Lyudmila Dubanina, ribs snapped, heart pulped. Nikolai Thibault Brignol, skull crushed like a walnut. Semyon Zolotaryov, chest caved in, shoulders shattered. No external wounds, no cuts, no claw marks. Just pure, raw power smashing them inside out. Autopsies said massive, blunt trauma, like a car hit them or a fall from 50 feet. But the snow's flat, no cliffs nearby. Could something large do that? A Yeti's no stretch. Think a grizzly bear strength times 2. I've read about bears snapping spines with a swat. 500 pounds of muscle could do worse. The tent's slashed from inside, not ripped by claws, sure, but maybe they cut out before it attacked, fleeing as it lunged. The cedar climbers, hands burned, branches broken, fit a chase, scrambling from something big. It's a stretch, but it's got teeth, or paws, I guess. Here's the counterpoint, though, because we've got to play fair. No tracks, no signs of struggle. So was it fear, not an actual attack? Searchers scoured Kholat Syakhl, February 59, fresh snow, and found zilch. No paw prints, no fur, no blood outside the tent. An 8-foot beast stomping around, 500 pounds on powder, leaves a mark, right? Wind could have blown tracks away. Gusts hit hard up there. But days later, human footprints stayed clear. No claw marks on the tent, no shredded gear. Just those clean slashes from inside. And the bodies. No bites, no gouges, just cold and trauma. If a Yeti crushed Lyuda, why's she intact outside? Why no fight? 9 hikers, some tough as nails, and not a scratch from resisting. Maybe it's not a brawl, maybe it's terror. That Yeti photo spooks them, say they spot it days before, laugh it off, but it sticks. Night falls, they hear something, a roar, a thud, See a shadow through the canvas. Panic hits. Igor yells, "Cut and run!" They slash out, bolt, thinking it's coming. No attack, just fear driving them into the blizzard, imagining a beast that never strikes. The injuries? A fall in the ravine, or something else. Military wind, mislabeled as Yeti force. No tracks needed, just their own dread, running them ragged. I've had May growl at shadows, nearly jumped out of my skin, so I get it. Fear's a monster, all its own. Let's paint it. I'm Xena, you're Georgie. Tent's quiet. A growl rumbles. Huge, hairy shape looms outside. We slash, scream, scatter. Leuta's down, crushed. I'm climbing the cedar. You're freezing by the fire. Or maybe we just think it's there, that photo haunting us, and we run ourselves to death. It's wild, half Scooby-Doo, half primal scare. The Mansi Manx reel in their tails. Old hunters swore they'd seen it, and that photo's creepy as heck. Crushed bones scream big, but no tracks. Fear's the twist. Yeti or not, something spooked them silly. So, Yeti attack, theory number 3. It's got flair, that eerie snapshot, those insane injuries. A creature from folklore stomping into 59. Could something large have smashed them? Sure, force fits, panic tracks, but no tracks, no struggle. It leans hard on fear, not fangs. I love it. Huck's snoring like he's unimpressed, but my heart's in it. Science says, nah. Cryptozoologists say maybe. What do you think? Yeti vibes or just a ghost story? Next up's weirder. Think lights in the sky, so let's ease into that. Stay with me, we're rolling. All right, we've chased avalanches, military mishaps, even a Yeti or two, and now it's time to tilt our heads up to the sky for something really out there. We're diving into theory number 4, paranormal and UFOs, because, come on, no mystery's complete without a little cosmic weirdness. This one's short and sweet, but packed with chills. So settle in with me, nice and slow, like we're stargazing on Dead Mountain. And let's see if something extraterrestrial might have crossed paths with our hikers. Ready? Let's float into this one. First off, let's talk about those orange orbs, because they're the spark that lights this theory up. Picture it. Early February 1959, right around when the hikers died, February 1st or 2nd, and folks across the northern Urals start seeing strange things in the sky. Glowing orange spheres, big, bright, drifting slow and silent over the peaks. A Montse hunter near Ivdel swore he spotted them the night of February 2nd. Low, hovering, then zipping off like they had somewhere to be. Another group, searchers out later on February 17th, logged fireballs moving west. Same deal, orange and eerie. These aren't one-off tales. The Soviet investigation mentions them buried in a line. Witnesses reported luminous objects. Were they rocket tests? The USSR was big into missiles. Sputnik's 2 years old. They're launching stuff all the time. A misfired flare, a booster stage burning up, it's plausible. But the timing, right over Kholat Syakhl, right when the hikers vanish, that's where it gets stranger. What if those orbs weren't ours, Soviet or otherwise, but something else? Let's lean into that, because UFOs were hot in 59. The Cold War's got everyone jumpy. America's spotting saucers. Russia's got its own tales. The Urals are remote, perfect for a flyby if you're, say, little green men scoping out Earth. The theory says those orange orbs are craft, alien ships, not rockets, buzzing in the mountains. Maybe they're scanning, testing, or just curious. And the hikers are in their path. Inside the tent, it's quiet. Georgie's strumming fades, then a hum, a glow through the canvas. Panic hits. They slash out, run into the snow, barefoot and wild-eyed. The lights pulse, Maybe a beam, a force, crushing Lyuta, Sasha, Semyon with tech we can't fathom, leaving no marks outside. The rest scatter, freeze while the orbs drift off. Mission done. It's bonkers, sure, but those witnesses miles apart saw something. Rocket tests don't hover like that, or do they? Then there's the electromagnetic interference, because this theory's got more weirdness to sprinkle in. Around the time of the deaths, and even after, folks in the Urals reported odd signals. Radio operators in Evdel picked up static bursts, crackling, pulsing, no source, right around early February '59. Search teams later said compasses spun funny near Kholat Syakhl. Not wild swings, but enough to notice. Igor was a radio geek. He'd have had gear, maybe a little receiver, and if it fritzed out, they'd have felt it. The theory ties this to UFOs. Electromagnetic fields are classic sci-fi stuff, right? Engines humming, power leaking, scrambling signals, or even mines. Could have hit the tent, lights flicker, heads buzz, panic spikes. They cut and run, thinking the world's ending. No hard proof. Soviet files don't log it, but those reports linger, whispers of something electric in the air. So, were they targeted or just in the wrong place? That's the big question here. Option 1. The hikers were chosen. UFOs spot them. 9 dots in the snow, a perfect test group. Maybe it's an experiment. Zap them with a beam, see what breaks. Lyuta's ribs, Sasha's skull, alien tech testing human limits, no claws or bullets needed, radiation on their clothes, fallout from a craft's drive, a cosmic fingerprint. The orbs linger, finish the job, vanish, leaving us a riddle. Option 2, pure bad luck. They're camping, wrong slope, wrong night, as a ship cruises by, not caring who's below. A stray pulse, a misfired ray, boom. Tense chaos, they flee, and it's over. No targeting, just collateral damage from a galactic pit stop. Either way, those orange lights and weird signals paint a scene. Something above, something not human. Crossing paths with Dead Mountain. Let's play it. I'm Igor, you're Xena, tense dark. A hum builds, orange glow seeps in, compass spins, my radio's static. We slash out. Bam! A force hits. Lyuta's down. We run. Lights blinking overhead. Or it's accidental. A brush past. And we're just ants under a boot. The injuries fit. Blunt, internal, bizarre. Radiation's a clue. Orbs are the smoking gun. But no wreckage. No alien selfie. It's thin. Soviet rockets explain the lights. Secret launches. Flares burning out. Yet the timing's too perfect. Electromagnetic stuff, could be weather, equipment glitches. Still, 1959 skies were alive, UFO fever was real, and Dead Mountain's lonely enough for a visit. So, paranormal and UFOs, theory number 4. It's short, sweet, and out there. Orange orbs as saucers, not Soviets. Signals as alien buzz, not static. Hikers targeted or tripped over by something cosmic. I'm grinning. Huck's snoring like he's unimpressed. But it's legends and lore, right? We love the wild stuff. No hard evidence. Photos of lights, sure, but no ET fingerprints. Still, those witnesses, that eerie glow, it's got a pull. What do you think? UFO vibes or just Cold War tricks? Next one's grounded. Humans, not aliens. So let's ease back to Earth. Stay with me, we're rolling on. Well, here we are. We've danced with yetis and UFOs. Wild rides, right? And now it's time to pull back a little, get inside the hikers' heads for something sneaky and strange. Let's look at the last explanation that we are going to talk about today. Theory number 5, infrasound and psychological breakdown. A twist that's less about beasts or bombs and more about what happens when your own brain turns against you. So settle in with me, nice and slow, like we're whispering in the dark, and let's see if the wind itself might have unraveled our hikers. Ready? Let's ease into this one. First up, the infrasound hypothesis, because this is where science gets spooky. Picture Dead Mountain, Kholat Shakal, February 59. The tent's pitched on that gentle slope, wind howling outside, minus 25, snow swirling like a ghost dance. The theory says it's not just any wind, it's a katabatic wind, a cold, heavy gust that rolls down hills like a freight train. These winds can whip up infrasound, low-frequency sound waves, below 20 hertz, too deep for your ears to catch, but your body feels them. Ever stood near a big truck idling and felt your chest rumble? That's the vibe, except up there, it's nature's doing, not diesel. The Ural's shape, ridges, valleys, could have funneled it right into the tent. A perfect storm of air and sound. What's that do? Well, infrasound's a trickster. Studies show it messes with you. Nausea, dizziness, a creeping dread. Like something's wrong, but you can't name it. Some say hallucinations kick in, shadows move, voices whisper. Imagine our hikers, tired, cramped, half asleep. When this hum hits, Georgie's strumming fades, Zena's diary drops, Igor's head spins. Suddenly it's not just cold, it's wrong. Panic spikes. They're seeing things, hearing roars that aren't there. Slash the tent, bolt barefoot into the night. No avalanche, no yeti. Just wind playing a cruel tune on their minds, driving them out to freeze. It's eerie. Nature as a ghost, not a fist. I've felt wind rattle my windows. May growls at it, so I can see it shaking them loose. Now let's push that further, paranoia, fear, and hypothermia. Because once they're out, things could have spiraled. 9 friends, tight as family. Zena's warmth, Iger's cool head. But infrasound's got them rattled. They're barefoot, shivering. Minus 20 clawing in, and that hum's still buzzing, twisting thoughts. Paranoia creeps up. Semyon, the outsider, glares at Rustic. Lyuda snaps at Georgie over nothing. Fear amps it. Every shadow's a threat, every gust a scream. Could they have turned on each other? The theory says maybe. Panic flips to fight or flight, and fight wins. A shove turns to a swing. Semyon's war-hardened fists, Rustic's strength. Someone grabs a ski pole, a rock. Lyuda's ribs snap. Sasha's skull cracks, not from outside, but inside, a group breaking apart. No blood, though, no cuts outside the tent, no brawl marks on the bodies, so maybe it's subtler. Fear splits them. They scatter, Georgie and Ura to the cedar, Igor dragging Zena back, the ravine 4 tumbling in a daze. Hypothermia is the real killer. Once you're out, it's game over. But that initial shove, infrasound could have lit the fuse. I've seen folks snap over less. May and Huck bicker over a bone, so 9 stressed kids in a blizzard? It's not wild. Diaries hint at tension. Georgie's socks plotting mutiny quip could have hid real gripes. Cold, fear, a buzzing brain could have turned friends to foes just long enough to doom them. Then there's the paradoxical undressing factor, because this is a real thing, and it fits their clothing mess perfectly. Hypothermia is sneaky. First you're cold, shaking, teeth chattering, but as your core drops, below 90 Fahrenheit, say, your brain glitches. Blood vessels widen, you feel hot, like you're burning up. It's called paradoxical undressing. Victims rip off coats, shirts, stripped down to nothing, even in a blizzard. Georgie and Ura by the cedar, underwear only. Hands burned from a fire they couldn't feel. Zena, Igor, Rustic, half-dressed, socks but no boots. The ravine 4, Coats on some, not others. Infrasound panics them out, barefoot into -25, and hypothermia kicks in fast. They're running, dazed, then bam! I'm roasting. Off come the layers, scattered in the snow. It's science, not sci-fi. 20% of hypothermia deaths show this. Rescue teams find folks naked in drifts, confused families asking, why'd they strip? Up on Dead Mountain, no one's there to stop them. Georgie tears off his shirt, Xena drops her jacket, all logic gone. The cedar fire. They're so far gone, numb, hallucinating, they burn their hands without caring. Infrasound starts it, panic, flight. But hypothermia is the grim reaper, undressing them as they fade. I've shivered through a cold night, May cuddling close, and can't imagine that flip. It's tragic, but it tracks. Those bare bodies aren't crazy, they're a symptom. Let's play it. I'm Liuta, you're Igor, tense dark. Wind hums, low, creepy. My stomach churns, your ears ring. Shadows twist. Semyon's a threat, I shove him, / we're out. Paranoia splits us. I run, you yell, Xena, back. Cold bites. I'm freezing, then hot. Off goes my coat. I stumble, freeze. No tracks, no fight. Just wind and fear breaking us. The injuries, Liuta's ribs, Sasha's skull, could be false. Stumbles in the dark, not fists. Infrasound's real. Labs test it. Animals bolt from it, but no wind data from 59 proves it hit Kholat Syakhl. Still, katabatic gusts fit. Fast, freaky, a mind bender. Infrasound and psychological breakdown. It's sneaky, wind as the villain, panic as the spark, hypothermia tying it up with paradoxical undressing. No claws, no bombs, just nature and nerves. Could they turn on each other? Maybe, not a brawl, but a fracture. Clothing fits. Science backs it. No hard proof, no recordings, no witnesses. But it's creepy enough to linger. All right, we've trekked through the snow, unraveled the discovery, poked at Soviet secrets, and chased some wild theories. Avalanches, yetis, UFOs, you name it. Now it's time to step back and look at the big picture. Why this story, the Dyatlov Pass Incident, still has us in its grip 66 years later. This is the cultural legacy part where we see how this tale's woven itself into our world and why we can't let it go. First off, let's talk about the Dyatlov Pass Incident in media because, oh man, this story's been everywhere. It's 1959 when it happens, hushed up by the Soviets. But once the Iron Curtain cracks in the 90s, it spills out, and the world grabs it with both hands. Books start popping up, first in Russia, then beyond. One of the earliest is The Price of State Secrets is 9 Lives by Anatoly Gushin, a journalist who dug into the case in the 90s. Gritty, raw, full of local whispers. Then there's Dead Mountain by Donnie Eichar in 2013. He's an American filmmaker who treks to the Urals, interviews Yuri Yudin before he passes, and pitches that infrasound theory we just unpacked. It's a bestseller. Folks love the mix of detective work and chills. I've got a copy on my shelf, dog-eared from flipping through it too many times. Documentaries? Oh, they're all over. Discovery Channel's got Russian Yeti, The Killer Lives. Cheesy title, sure, but it's got that Yeti photo front and center, creeping you out with reenactments. The History Channel dives in with Mountain of the Dead, more somber, digging into the military angle, those orange orbs. Russia's own filmmakers hit it too. The Mystery of Dyatlov Pass in 2008, interviewing old searchers, showing snowy shots of Kholat Syakhl that make your teeth chatter. Movies take it further. Horror's the go-to. Devil's Pass in 2013 is a standout. Found footage style, where modern hikers find a bunker. Mutants, even time travel nonsense. It's bonkers. I watched it late one night, May growling at the screen. But it's got that eerie Dyatlov vibe. Books, docs, films, they keep piling up, each one tossing a new spin, keeping the story fresh and spooky. And it's not just entertainment, music's in on it too. There's a Russian folk band, don't ask me to pronounce their name, who did a haunting ballad about Zina and Igor, all mournful strings and wind howls. Online, X is a goldmine. Threads dissecting that Yeti photo, fans arguing avalanche versus UFOs. Podcasts like ours, yep, we're part of it. Keep the flame going, swapping tales with you all. It's a cultural beast, 66 years old and still kicking, popping up in horror anthologies, true crime shows, even a video game mod where you ski the past dodging shadows. Every medium's grabbed it, because it's not just a case, it's a legend, a ghost story that won't fade. Now let's shift to modern investigations and theories, because today's researchers aren't letting this rest either. Fast forward to 2019, Russia reopens the case, prodded by families and public buzz. They tap forensic experts, geologists, meteorologists, big brains with shiny tools to settle it. Their verdict? Avalanche, those Swiss simulations from 2021, Johann Gaum and Alexander Puzarin back it up. They say a slab hit, small, sudden, crushed some, panicked the rest, end of story. It's the official line now, clean, natural, no conspiracies. But not everyone's buying it. Critics like Teddy Hajiska, who runs a Dyatlov website, point out the holes, no debris, those scattered bodies. She's like, come on, these were pros, why no boots? Her team's pushing for more, digging into radiation, those orbs. Forensic folks keep poking too. In the 90s, ex-investigator Lev Ivanov, old and chatty by then, drops bombshells. I was forced to close it. Those lights were real. Modern pathologists revisit the autopsies, Lyuta's ribs, Sasha's skull, say it's consistent with high-impact force, but not falls. More like blasts or squeezes. Radiation's still a head-scratcher. Traces on clothes, low but odd. Some say contaminated gear from their engineering school. Others whisper fallout. Then there's Donnie Icar's infrasound, wind as a mind bender, picked up by acoustics experts who test katabatic flows in labs, nodding, yeah, could happen. Paranormal buffs cling to UFOs, those orange lights, and Yeti fans wave that blurry photo. Today's take, it's a tug of war. Science says avalanche, forensics lean harder, fringe voices shout stranger stuff. The deeper they dig, the muddier it gets. Which is why we're still here, scratching our heads. So, what keeps us fascinated? That's the heart of it. Why does this endure when other mysteries fade? Is it the unanswered questions? Oh, absolutely, 66 years. And we've got unknown compelling force, sealed files, missing pages. What slashed the tent? Why no coats? What crushed them without a mark? Every theory, avalanche, military, Yeti, has gaps, and those gaps nag at us. I've lain awake, May nudging me like, go to sleep, mulling it over. It's a puzzle with half the pieces lost. Soviet secrecy didn't help, burying evidence we'll never see. Every why pulls us back, because we hate not knowing, don't we? It's like a cliffhanger with no sequel. Drives you nuts, but you can't look away. Then there's the eerie photos, because they hit different. Zena's smile by the campfire, bright, alive. Then that slash tent, empty. Georgie posing with skis, just a kid having fun. Then his body by the cedar, hands burned. That Yeti photo, blurry, shadowy, creeps into your dreams. Is it rustic or something staring back? The final roll, January 31st, shows them pitching camp, laughing, snow dusting their coats, hours from doom. They're frozen in time. Black and white ghosts, so human, it hurts. I've stared at them, feeling that chill, that pull. They're not just clues. They're a story, a shiver you can't shake. Add those orange orbs, glowing dots, and witness tales, and it's a haunted gallery we keep revisiting. But I think it's deeper. What keeps us hooked is the human desire to solve the unsolvable. This isn't just a whodunit, it's a what. 9 friends, smart, bold, laughing, step into the snow and vanish into something we can't name. Were they crushed by nature, betrayed by secrets, hunted by shadows? We're wired to crack it. Humans hate mysteries that win. Look at us, X-threads, books, me yapping here. We're detectives, storytellers, chasing meaning. It's 2025, 66 years since Xena wrote, "What awaits us?" And we're still asking. Yuri Yudin, the survivor, carried it till he died. Said, if I could ask God one thing, it'd be, what happened? We want that answer, for them, for us. It's personal too, they're us. Igor's discipline, Lyuda's grit, Georgie's jokes. Friends on an adventure like we've all been. There last night, stove flickering, wind howling, could have been hours gone wrong. That's the legacy. Media spins it, experts wrestle it, but we feel it. Unanswered questions keep the fire lit, eerie photos stoke it. The drive to solve keeps us poking. I'm hooked. May's nudging me like, wrap it up, and I bet you are too. What's pulling you? Those pics, the gaps, the human itch. Hit me on X at David Culpepper, and I want your take. This endures because it's ours, a mystery we won't let die. Now it's time to pull up a chair or kick back wherever you're listening and turn this over to you. This is our listener reflection, where we take a breath, chew on what we've heard, and figure out what you believe. First off, I've got to ask, what theory makes the most sense to you? You know, we've laid out a buffet of options, haven't we? The avalanche, scientific, clean, with those Swiss simulations saying a slab hit and sent them running. Military experiment, Cold War secrets, parachute mines, maybe a sonic blast gone wrong. The Yeti, that blurry photo, crushed bones, a hairy shadow in the snow. UFOs, orange orbs lighting up the sky, alien beams zapping down, infrasound, wind messing with their heads, driving them out to freeze. I've been rolling them around all episode. May's given me that pick one already look, but I'm torn. Avalanche feels solid but shaky. No debris bugs me. Military's got that sneaky Soviet vibe. Radiation's a clue. Yeti's my heart, wild and fun, but infrasound's creeping up, all quiet and eerie. So, what's your take? Hit me on X at David Culpepper. Which one's got your vote? Maybe the avalanche. Nature's a beast, and those injuries fit blunt force. Or military. Those sealed files scream cover up, don't they? Yeti fans, I see you waving that photo. Could something big have spooked them? UFOs. Those lights keep me up. Or infrasound wind is a silent puppet master. Or, here's the kicker. Does none of it make sense? I mean, we've got slashed tents, bare feet, missing tongues, 66 years, and it's still a jigsaw with half the pieces gone. Maybe it's a mix, avalanche plus panic, military plus wind, or something we haven't dreamed up. I want your gut. Drop me a line. Tell me where you land. This mystery's a group effort. You're the jury now. That brings me to something bigger. Why do we love unsolved mysteries like this? Because, oh man, we do. I'm proof, sitting here yapping about it, and you're right there with me. It's the thrill of the unknown, isn't it? That tingle when you hit a dead end. 9 hikers, laughing one night, gone the next, and no one's cracked it. It's like a ghost story where the ending's yours to write. Every theory's a what if, every clue a tease. The Dyatlov Pass isn't tidy, no bloody knife, no smoking gun, just shadows and snow whispering, figure me out. We're hooked because it's a game, chasing shadows, piecing scraps, knowing we might never win, but loving the hunt. And it's more than thrill, it's the need for answers baked into us. Humans don't sit still with question marks. Look at us digging through diaries, staring at that Yeti photo like it'll talk. Zena's last line. What awaits us? It's our line too, echoing 66 years later. We want closure for Igor's cool head, Lyuta's grit, Georgie's jokes, because they're us, friends on a trip turned nightmare. Unsolved mysteries tug at that itch. Why'd they run? What crushed them? It's not just fun, it's personal. I've tossed it around because solving feels like justice, like giving them peace. We love it because it's a challenge, taunting us, daring us to crack what the Soviets couldn't or wouldn't. Speaking of the Soviets, did they know more? That's my final thought, because this one's been nagging me since we hit that investigation. Picture it, 1959, Cold War peak. The USSR is a fortress of secrets. 9 students die, smart, young, the future, on a mountain they sealed off for 3 years after. Lev Ivanov, the lead investigator, shuts it in 3 months. Unknown compelling force, case closed. Then whispers in the 90s. I was forced to stop. Files vanish, autopsies, photos, radiation notes, torn out, locked away. Locals saw orange lights, soldiers carted boxes off the slope. Searchers like Valentin Yakimenko said, military was all over it. Why rush it? Why hide it? I've got 2 cents, and May's tilting her head like, spill it. I think they knew something, maybe not the whole truth. Yeti's a stretch for them, but more than wind did it. Military tests fit, radiation, orbs, injuries like a blast, too close to secret bases for comfort. Ivanov's fireballs hint. He saw those lights, wanted to chase them, got shut down. The KGB's shadow looms. Semyon's sister got threats, family stonewall. Could be simple. Cold War, panic, don't let the West gloat, or dark. A weapon misfired, hikers died, cover it up. Those missing files, they're the smoking gun, shredded or stashed in some Moscow vault out of reach. I'm not saying they had a memo. Yeti ate 'em, but they had clues they buried, because admitting failure or worse wasn't their style. Let's linger there because it ties it all together. What if the Soviets knew, a test, a glitch, and left us compelling force to dodge the heat? It fuels our love, secrets on top of secrets, a locked box we can't pry open. Yuri Yudin, the survivor, died in 2013, still asking. Said he'd trade anything for the truth. We're carrying that torch, 66 years of what-ifs. Was it wind, bombs, aliens, or just snow and bad luck? I've spun it every way, but I'm stuck loving the mess. The thrill keeps us guessing, the need keeps us digging, and that Soviet shadow, it's the cherry on top, hinting there's more we'll never see. So, what do you believe? Avalanche is neat, military sneaky, Yeti's wild, UFOs dazzle, infrasound's quiet, or none. I'm tossing it to you. Hit me on X, at David Culpepper. What's your call? Why does this hook you? The unknown, the fight for answers, that hidden truth. I've loved this ride. But you're why it's magic. This mystery endures because we won't let it go. 9 souls, a snowy night, and us still chasing. What's your truth? I can't wait to hear it. Well, lore lovers, here we are. We've trekked all the way through the Dyatlov Pass Incident, from those snowy trails to the wild theories and everything in between. And now it's time to sit back, take a breath, and wrap this up. I'm cozied up here with my tea. May and Huck have been my trusty sidekicks through all this, but they are snoozing like they've heard enough about Dead Mountain for one night. Me? I'm still buzzing a little, because this story's got claws, doesn't it? Now, I've got to thank you, because you're the heartbeat of this. I'm just the guy yapping into a mic. But you're why legends and lore hums. We've walked this trail together, over an hour of snow and shadows, and I've loved every step. Your ears, your curiosity, you've kept me going. From that first hello to now, you've got stories. I saw those Mothman sketches last week, and I'm dying for your Dyatlov spin. This isn't my show, it's ours, so let's keep it rolling. Don't worry, because we're not done adventuring. I've got a treat for you next week. We're leaving the snow behind, thawing out a bit, and heading to the high seas. Ever heard of the Mary Celeste, ghost ship of the Atlantic? Oh, it's a beauty. 1872, a merchant ship found drifting, sails up, cargo intact. But her crew, 11 souls, including a captain's wife and little girl, gone, vanished into thin air. No blood, no fight. Just a lifeboat missing, coffee still warm on the table. Was it pirates? Mutiny? Something stranger? We're diving in, same slow, spooky vibe, unpacking the eerie, chasing the why. From dead mountain to open water, May's ears just twitch like she's ready. It's another mystery to chew on. Stay tuned, it's coming your way. Before I go, let's linger a sec. This hour plus with you, it's been a blast. The Dyatlov Pass Incident, those strange deaths, 9 kids lost in ways we can't pin, hits hard. Chilling details, bare feet in snow, crushed bones, radiation whispers, stick like frost. Theories, avalanches math, military shadows, yetis growl, UFOs lights, infrasounds hum, dance in our heads, none quite landing. It's 2025, 66 years since that tent went quiet. And we're still here, still wondering. Thanks for walking it with me, for listening, for caring. You're the spark. Keep those thoughts coming. I'll read every one. The Mary Celeste is next. Ghost ship vibes, warm seas, new chills. But for now, this is home. Keep your lanterns lit, your curiosity burning. This is David Culpepper, signing off from Legends and Lore. Stay safe. See you on the waves. Good night.